go to.
But I don't want to acknowledge you guys are spying on the intelligence agencies.
I just want to put one other issue on the floor before I get another question or two, which is Ukraine. This administration, unlike the administration you worked in, decided to provide limited defense articles to Ukraine. Do you think that was a wise decision? And more broadly, do you see any scope for any sort of a deal on eastern Ukraine?
The answer is yes, I think it was a wise decision. But then again, I was pushing that for 2 years before we left. So, and the reason is I think the more you up the ante, the cost to Russia for their aggression. I mean, as you all know, and you know this better than anybody, the one big lie going on about Ukraine back in the rest of Russia is that no Russian soldiers are engaged, they're not dying, no body bags are coming home, etc., because there's overwhelming opposition on the part of the body politic in Russia for engagement in Ukraine in a military sense. I think the Donbass has potential to be able to be solved, but it takes two things. One of those things is missing now, and that is I'm desperately concerned about the backsliding on the part of Kyiv in terms of corruption. They made, I'll give you one concrete example. But it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time. Well, they made some genuine, substantial changes institutionally and with people. But in one of the three institutions, there's now some backsliding.
The courts?
Yes. And they had made that commitment that they wouldn't do that. And so when we left, the first thing I spent a lot of time, as did Mike, because this was his territory as well, and people like Charlie Kupchan and Victoria. And anyway, there were a lot of good people we had working on this. We spent a lot of time with Vice President Pence because I was worried that they would make a mistake there would be a sin of omission rather than commission, failing to do certain things or say certain things. And that was at the time when there was an alleged, or there was a grave concern among the foreign policy elite that maybe a deal was made to lift sanctions. Whether that was true or not, but that was the atmosphere right after the election. And so what happened was they did some good things, and they now, what's his name, the guy they have over there?
Kurt Volker.
Kurt Volker, solid guy. But Kurt, as the best of my knowledge, does not have the authority or the ability to go in and say, you don't straighten this up, you're out of here. Because look, it all gets down to a simple proposition. We spent so much time, as you know, because I went to you for advice. We spent so much time on the phone making sure that everyone from, at the time, Hollande to Renzi wouldn't walk away. They wanted no part of these sanctions on Russia. It had impact on them. It was basically, you got to do that. And thank God Merkel was strong enough at the time to reluctantly, she didn't like it either, to stand with us. But always worked in Kyiv is I said, look, it's a simple proposition. If, in fact, you do not continue to show progress in terms of corruption, we are not going to be able to hold the rest of Europe on these sanctions. And Russia is not going to roll across the inner line here and take over the rest of the country with their tanks. What they're going to do is they're going to take your economy down. You're going to be absolutely buried, and you're going to be done. And that's when it all goes to hell. But the best of my knowledge, and I have, it's a very difficult spot to be in now when foreign leaders call me. And they do, because I've never, ever, ever would say anything negative to a foreign leader, and I mean it sincerely, about a sitting president, no matter how fundamentally I disagree with them. And it is not my role to make foreign policy. But the questions across the board range from, what the hell's going on, Joe, to what advice do you have for me? And my advice always is I give them names of individuals in the administration who I think to be knowledgeable and committed, and I say, you should talk to so-and-so. You should. And what I do in every one of those times, I first call the vice president and tell him I received the call, tell him and ask him whether he has any objection to my returning the call, and then what is the administration's position, if any, they want me to communicate to that country. But the point is, there is no pressure that I'm aware of, correct me if I'm wrong, no pressure I'm aware of on the present leadership in Ukraine to hold them together to be able to continue what looked like was a real possibility of turning Minsk into something that was doable by being much tougher than Germany wanted us to be. But we were moving in that direction, but now it looks like the pressure's off, and it requires this day to day to day.
Can I just jump in? This may be my only chance, but just on
Actually, you're going to get something you didn't expect. You're going to